everyone, and welcome to the CMO Forward Thinkers series. I am thrilled to be here today with the amazing Mo Gawdat. Mo actually is challenging us all to think differently, whether it's the AI impact on humanity or how to cultivate happiness and remain resilient through challenging times. Mo is more than just a brilliant engineer, entrepreneur, podcast host, best-selling author. My goodness, the list goes on. But his story is really one of hope, of transformation, and courage. And today we've got the privilege of hearing his unique perspectives firsthand. So thank you for being here. It's wonderful to have you with us.
So happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
Good. So welcome to Amsterdam.
Yes, and it's biggest glory with all of the rain and icy wind. Yes.
Yeah, you're not used to that living in Dubai, I'm sure.
I'm a remote. I just hold you there.
Yeah.
That was expertly delivered. I've just got to go tell everyone outside not to speak so
Okay.
because it bled in. But it means you get another.
Should I start again? Okay.
Yeah, let's do it from the top.
One from the top.
Okay.
Do you want me to see if I can get someone to stand
Yeah, can you get
outside?
someone to stand outside? Maybe we should put like a sign saying filming or something on a piece of paper and stick it to the, or get a Rottweiler out there.
Someone here to let them know. It was just there was a lot of levity going on.
I
A lot
know.
of laughter, but no, it's all good.
But it's only for an internal, it's for my team, so I know we want it to be as,
the end of the world.
it's not the end of the world. It actually makes it sound like it's more.
Good.
Okay.
Okay.
There we go. Thank you. So yeah, one more time.
Okay.
Excellent.
Okay. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the CMO School's Forward Thinkers series. We are honored today to be joined by the amazing Mo Gawdat. Now, Mo challenges us all to think differently, whether it's the impact of AI on humanity or how to cultivate happiness and remain resilient through challenging times. Mo Gawdat is more than just a brilliant engineer, entrepreneur, podcast host, and best-selling author. That list is fairly impressive, I have to say. But his story is really one of hope, transformation, and courage. And today we have the privilege of hearing his unique perspective. So welcome to CMO School, Mo.
Thank you. Thanks for having
And
me.
welcome to Amsterdam.
Yes, absolutely. Amsterdam in the rain and icy wind.
Yes,
Yeah,
I was
to
gonna
this
say.
time of the year, a very interesting choice.
Yes,
I
I
have to
hope you
say.
bought a Coke, because in Dubai it's a very different climate situation.
I did. I was boarding the flight, and I told the hostess, if I could actually just, if we haven't finished boarding, can I stand in the sun for a minute?
Get your vitamin D fix
Exactly.
before you get on
I'm
the
going
plane.
to miss it. Yes.
Perfect. Well, I'd love to start. Mo, your career has been truly fascinating, from IBM and Microsoft to Google X, where you led pretty groundbreaking innovations in autonomous vehicles and augmented reality. You're also a founder and thought leader on AI and mental health, which I know is top of mind for a lot of people right now. What sparked your passion for technology, and how did it lead you to explore its intersection with human well-being?
I have to say that my career is fascinating to me as well. I mean, I have no idea how I ended up here, to be very honest and open. And a lot of people will tell you, I did that. I don't think I did. I think I was sort of being groomed for something, if you want. I was born and raised in Egypt, public school, public university in Egypt. So my chances of becoming chief business officer of Google X from that beginning were not even a dream. Like, I couldn't allow myself to dream that far. And it seems that between my personal life, where I was incredibly successful at a very young age, around 29, I've sort of had my first middle-age crisis. I've achieved everything that everyone dreams of, and I was miserable. And between that and between, sadly, the loss of my wonderful son when he was 21, 10 years ago, that sort of triggered me to stop a career that I have to say was probably the most incredible tech career I could ever dream of, and start on that new journey of trying to make a billion people happy and the right thing as a result. And I have to say, I'm personally incredibly surprised that I ended up being anything in that field at all, because if you know my mind, I'm truly in core, I'm a mathematician. don't be fooled by the fact that I can speak words, but in my mind I see the world in numbers and algorithms. So by definition, I was born a developer. I coded when I was 8. I understood physics at a very young age. I was reading quantum physics equations at 11. Wow. And it is, when I tell people that, they think it's impressive. It's a very unusual wiring.
Did you have to train your brain to think differently?
I did. Yeah. I remember vividly when I was 7, in maybe grade 1 or something like that. I remember vividly the moment where I was looking at the kids in recess and going like, they're weird. I swear I'm not making this up, but I remember my brain saying, but I think you're going to have to, to observe them and behave a little more like them to be accepted. Remember, in my time, being neurodivergent was not even diagnosed, was not even noticed, right? And so as a child, I needed to play football and, talk about who won the match yesterday and things that I really didn't relate to at all, just to fit in. But then once you allowed me, I went back to my computers and I put my head down and I went back to my physics and mathematics, and this is where I found myself, really.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
That's wonderful. And you've also talked a lot about the potential for technology. You speak about happiness to be a force for good in the world. Talk to me a bit more about the 1 Billion Happy initiative.
1 Billion Happy was sparked by Ali, by the loss of my wonderful son. The idea that, I believe it or not, in my highly engineered approach to life, it's difficult to find happiness because, by definition, an engineer wants things to be perfect. You want to see what's wrong with anything and fix it. But the truth is that life is never perfect, and actually it's the beauty of the design of life is that diversity and interesting challenges and so on. And so at my younger age, when I struggled, I would try to solve my path to happiness using the only thing I knew how to do, which is to build algorithms around it, which I know sounds really weird, but believe it or not, it worked. I understood in very algorithmic ways how the human say perception of life causes us to be unhappy. And I would go to my wonderful son Ali, and Ali would be the one that would go, entertain me a little. He would ask me a couple of questions, just sort of like to keep the conversation going. And then he would say something like, but you could have just come and asked me. I mean, I could have explained that to you. And he would tell it to me as a heart will tell it, right? He knew.
He was a truth teller to you.
He truly was. And I think between the two of us, we ended up with a very human model that is actually based on, on logic, which is very rare in the happiness scene in the world. That's something that tells you, look, this is exactly how the human machine works. This is where it breaks. This is what you need to change. But written in a way that was human, connected, loving, if you want. And I have to say, when you really look back at those stages of my life, it goes back to that point of, I had to be miserable to find that research or to create that research and find those findings. I had to lose him to write it and share it with the world. And from there, 1 Billion Happy became an attempt to, it is a very selfish attempt from a father, a grieving father, if you want, because I felt that if, death has its finality, and when you lose a child, it's very difficult for any parent, until today, 10 years later.
Well, it's not supposed to happen, right?
It's not, believe it or not, it's happening all the time, especially in our world today. But the attempt was, if I could take his essence, which is really what he left with me, and I spread it to 1 billion people, then hopefully through 6 degrees of separation, a tiny part of Ali will live on in everyone. And that's where 1 Billion Happy started. And of course, somehow, I think it was meant to be started, so it succeeded and it worked really well so far. We're at tens of millions of people that have received the message, so I'm dedicating the rest of my life to it.
And how do you think technology plays a part in that?
Tech is never, tech has no polarity. So the promise of technology is that we can solve every problem offered to humankind. The challenge I find is that overlap technology and capitalism, and capitalism shifts that promise a little bit. And so I think we're at a crossroad, if you ask me, and most people are not fully aware of that, where we're very, very close to artificial general intelligence. Whether it's a year or 5 years, it's not a big difference, right? And when the smartest being on the face of planet Earth is no longer a human, the episode of history where we were the leading intelligence of the planet is over. And when that happens, you get into a moment of singularity where it's very difficult to predict what happens next. But what I know for a fact is that what would happen next would be a magnification of where we hand over. And sadly, when we hand over today, humanity is not very clear on what we want from life. Do we want to be really connected? And this is why we use technology as social media, which helps me to connect to my daughter when I'm traveling, for example. Or do we want likes and subscribes, and we want to make money out of it, which is a very different objective. Are the technology providers providing the technology to help humanity, like the typical Californian slogan of I'm doing this because I want to make a difference, because truly most founders do, believe it or not. Or does it shift over time and we forget a little bit about the difference and we have to report to the quarterly shareholders and so on? So it has no polarity to it. It's what we choose to do with technology that's going to define our future. My feeling is that, like with every other technology, the next phase is going to be a bit of uncertainty. I think we're going to have to find our footing. But in my personal view, eventually we will end up in a place where most of the problems created by humanity's stupidity will be taken away.
Yeah, okay. Super interesting. It's interesting also that, you said that you had to I talk about, math and English kind of like art and science.
100%.
So I'm an artist by birth.
Clearly, yeah.
And, I'm a marketeer. So for me, I've really had to train my brain to be much more data-driven.
Yeah.
Especially in a world where, marketeers are so close to the numbers and to the customer and all of those things. So it's interesting that we are complementary of each other in that way.
The two sides of the same coin.
Exactly, that's
absolutely,
right.
Yeah.
I'd love to shift gears a little bit. In your book, The Little Voice in Your Head, you discuss techniques to reprogram your inner voice. I'd love you to share some specific techniques with the team that have been particularly effective for you in cultivating a more positive and supportive inner dialogue. I know that I'm my own toughest critic, and I know a lot of people are. You're very self-critical of yourself and want to be the best version of yourself. What are some of the techniques that you that help there?
I think let's talk about this at 3 levels, and one of them is the whole premise of that little voice in your head. As irrational as our internal dialogue sometimes seems to be, and all of those incessant thoughts that pop out of nowhere and keep moving around in circles, as irrational as they sometimes seem to be, your brain is a very highly predictable computer system. Okay, it has different parts, just like a computer has a graphics processor and a main processor. We have a limbic system and a prefrontal cortex, and parts that are responsible for emotions, parts are responsible for problem solving, and so on and so forth. And in that little voice in your head, I realized, having been in both worlds, the happiness world and the technology world, that most of the younger generation of the world today know how to use their computers better than they know how to use their brains.
Yeah.
And it's quite shocking when you really think about it, because neuroscience is one way of looking at the brain, but most of spirituality has tried to analyze the way we use the mind, if you want, for a long time. And so the second layer to understand is, why is your brain talking to you? And what is that little voice? And I think the most interesting, eye-opening realization is that the voice in your head is not you telling you what to do. Okay?
Oh, that's so interesting.
Yes, it is. Most of us in the Western world, where we glorify our thoughts so much, we ignore the fact that if it was me telling me what to do, it wouldn't need to talk. If it was you telling you what to do,
Yeah.
you would instinctively know what it wants to say, right? It is a simple subject-object relationship. If you really understand that you have a heart in your body that is responsible to pump blood around your body to keep you alive. It's a survival machine, right? Nobody wakes up in the morning and says, I pump blood, therefore I am, right? But we wake up and say, I think, therefore I am. We associate so heavily with those thoughts. And the truth is they're not. Your brain is a third party, right? It's a 3-pound lump of tofu that is responsible to analyze the world around it. And like every other organ in your body, has a primary function of keeping you alive. And so it has a very high fondness of telling you what's wrong with the world, not what's right with the world. So it constantly nobody will ever see a tiger approaching them and go like, oh my God, look at how majestic that animal is, right?
Well, some may, but it won't end well.
They
Yeah,
don't
it won't end well.
they don't live to tell us, right? And the idea is your brain is responsible to say, this is wrong, this is wrong, this is dangerous, this is not how I want it to be. And believe it or not, that's exactly what unhappiness is. Unhappiness is a comparison between the events of your life and your expectations of how life should be, right? Your happiness is equal to or greater than the difference between your perception of the events of your life and your expectations of how life should be. You take any event and you compare them, right? And when you do, your brain is likely to tell you they're not matching because it wants to keep you safe. Now, once you realize that your brain is a third party, everything changes because 1, you don't have to obey anymore. 2, as a matter of fact, you can argue, okay? And interestingly, like I do, you can tell it to shut up. Like, honestly,
I learned that technique actually because imposter syndrome I faced since a very young age. Again, I had the realization when I was a very young girl that I would, if you told me that I was going to be CMO of a Fortune 500 company, I'd be like, you're crazy. So for me, it's always been, I've questioned a lot of decisions, and imposter syndrome has been something that I've been faced with. But I think once you recognize and rationalize, the voices get quieter.
The voices, and there are many techniques to get them quieter. I use 2 primary techniques. One is what I call the happiness flow chart, which is to go ahead with the direction of your brain. Your brain will say something to you. Of course, you have to parse it out. That's the problem. When you keep it as white noise in your head, you don't really know what's happening. You're just constantly bombarded with those thoughts. That's what we call incessant thinking. If you parse out a thought, okay, you go through 3 steps. It's literally like a flow chart, and that little voice in your head is comparison to computer systems. So you can use a flow chart, and it's question number 1 is it true? Is what my brain telling me true? Question number 2 is, if it's true, can I do something to fix it? Right? Question number 3 is, if I cannot fix it, can I accept it and do something to make my life better despite its presence? Right? And these are literally...
Even doing those 3 things, or asking yourself those 3 questions.
7 seconds between being upset and being happy.
That's
Believe
true.
it or not, right?
Wow.
And examples are very straightforward. Huh? My daughter is arguing with me. My brain will say she doesn't love you anymore. Is this true, brain? Like, if you're going to make a claim that's going to destroy my life, give me evidence. Like, she just hugged me in the morning. She made me breakfast. We constantly send kissing emojis to each other. What are you talking about, brain? Right? If it's not true, drop it. Okay? The economy is, my boss is going to fire me. Okay? And it's true. Okay, so what can you do to fix it? Can you talk to your boss? Can you improve your performance? Can you look for another job, right? The economy is going to be a little difficult, right? It is true, I cannot do anything to fix it. The economy is bigger than me. Can I simply say to myself, okay, I'm going to work on my budget, on my spending. I'm going to try to, sell differently. I'm going to change my product line. I accept that the economy is difficult. I call that committed acceptance. I accept that the economy is going to be difficult, but I commit to make my life better despite the difficulty. And if you just take those 3, really, it's as simple as that.
I love that.
90% of the time, you go back to either solving the problem, living with the problem, or realizing it's not a problem.
I wonder how much emotional energy people have wasted on not asking themselves those 3 questions.
Because we assume that if my brain says something, it's true.
It's true, yeah.
I can tell you, and I really hate to make that claim, your brain has never, ever, ever, ever once in your life told you the truth. Not once. It's not because it's your enemy. It's because it doesn't know the truth. It tells you what it thinks is the truth in favor of your safety.
Yeah. Okay. That's so interesting. That's why you need to have trusted advisors and truth tellers around you that
Absolutely.
keep it real for you, huh?
100%. That's where actually most of the wasted cycles in life go away. Yeah.
Okay, wonderful. We have a lot of people who'll be listening to this that are at different stages in their career and different levels of seniority. They might be individual contributors, people leaders. Some of the best career advice I've been given is when it's been shared with positive intent to make me a better leader. What's the best piece of career advice you've ever been given?
It's so funny because you look at my life now. When I wrote Solve for Happy, my first book, I was Chief Business Officer of Google X, which, as I said, is like the second best job on the planet.
Yeah, it's a dream job, right?
100%,
Yeah.
right? And then I wrote Solve for Happy, and it became a massive bestseller. And I will have to say openly, my life today is much more in alignment after 4 bestsellers and all of the work I do on happiness, and having the opportunity to speak to amazing people like you all the time, and it's really incredible. And I remember vividly that when I wrote Solve for Happy, like a proper software development, the developer, I A/B tested it. Right?
Of course you did.
I swear I did. I gave it to 270 people
Yeah.
to read it, and literally I gave them editing rights. I allowed them to go in and edit the text. And then others would edit what others have edited, right?
Wow.
It was an incredible experience. And
Yeah.
270 gives you a lot of
That's a
momentum.
lot of feedback.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so we took that version, and then I taught Solve for Happy twice. One in Stanford University and one in Hong Kong Technical University. At the end of my conversation at the end of my training at Hong Kong Technical University, someone walked to me and she looked at me, like a wise sage, and she said, you haven't chosen this, do you? And I said, what do you mean? And she said, this that you're about to do with the rest of your life, it chose you.
Wow.
I said, what do you mean? And she said, when you're ready, your task appears, right? And that, honestly and truly, has been the best career advice I've ever been given, right? We all think, perhaps because of the excitement of the youth, because of the what you read in Harvard Business Review and all of the business publications, that we're supposed to bend everything in life so that we achieve, okay? There are things in life that only happen when you're ready, which in very interesting terms are the most important things. All of the other stuff that you can bend, it's not really a big impact. And I know for a fact, we don't know each other very well, but I know for a fact that some of the most pivotal career moves you've ever done were given to you.
Yeah.
For me personally, Google itself was a complete stroke of luck, right? Of course, I was really working hard in my very senior position in Microsoft. I was doing the right things. And when I got the opportunity to go and interview at Google, I did the best that I could. But a lot of what happens because if you believe, life says there is you and your focus on you, but there is a role that you play in life.
Yes.
Okay? And to be able to hand the role over to you, I need to feel that you're ready.
Yeah.
Right? And I would say in my technical career, I've been groomed through very interesting stories to believe that the benefit of my customer, not my quota, is my job.
Yeah.
Okay? And that if I delivered the benefit of my customer always at the best possible way, I will always make my quota. Okay? And it actually is quite interesting because when I went to Google, that was the philosophy of the entire business. When I first presented my business plan to Eric and Larry and Sergey, they simply said, that's not the way we do things here, Mo. We want to, you're responsible for emerging markets. Don't give us a dollar sign business plan in the first week. Give us a user business plan. Give us a technology business plan. Do what makes us earn the revenue, like be qualified to earn the revenue. And I think that whole idea of when you're ready, your career breaks will show, gives you a very different internal focus. So you start to look at yourself and you say, every day I go to work, I need to become a little better, okay? I need to become the best version of myself that I have the potential to become.
Yes.
And the more you invest in you, without really worrying about your next career move and your next promotion and your next salary increase and all of those things we fight so hard for, when you're qualified, you will get
Will come, yeah.
what
I
you-
think
what
people
you deserve.
focus a little too much on that sometimes. It's like
100%.
they're concentrating more on, you know, the promotion or the pay rather than actually the value that they're
100%,
adding, and it
yeah.
kind of it causes you to behave in a
very different way. And
way.
we all know from your vantage point and mine that if you look at your teams, okay, and you can see sometimes that some of them advance quicker than their qualification, and they fizzle quicker than their qualification. Remember, someone may take a step ahead of you at a point in your career, but if they were not really solid and qualified, if they haven't built themselves for that higher role, they'll very quickly be figured out, if you want. And the opposite is true. In my own personal experience, because I got married very quickly, I had my first kid, my 2 kids, I had them very quickly. I was a father of 2 when I was 26, right? I kept comparing to my friends who were driving their BMWs in their early 30s, and I was paying for school, and I was right? And eventually, because I put my head down, I constantly invested in me, in becoming slightly better. It's very hard to measure. Slightly better every day, because I'm totally focused on my customer deserves the best. And by the way, my employer, because I one day will be the employer, deserves a loyal, honest person that helps them out. Okay? So that hopefully what goes around comes around, and when I'm the boss, I get people to do that for me. If you focus on that long enough, you'll be ready. And when you're ready, life itself will go like, I have this big task, you. There you go. You go do it, okay? And you won't even have to hunt for it. Believe me, life will give it to you.
I truly believe that everything happens for a reason and when it's supposed to, but you just have to have the patience for those doors and opportunities to come. It's been wonderful chatting with you, Mo. Thank you, everyone, for joining us on the CMO School Forward Thinkers series. It's been a pleasure, and I can't wait to speak to you again very soon. Thank you.